Working together through ups and downs basically means starting to get better at dealing with difficult conversations. Difficult conversation can be difficult because of interpersonal dynamics. A difficult conversation can be difficult just because the territory is really complex. People have legitimately different points of view. But the whole idea of building my skill to be a positive contributor in difficult conversations is a really crucial step in growing as a leader, regardless of your position. So the Ladder of Inference is a tool that's actually been quite instrumental in our work for a very long time. It has its roots actually in anthropology. It has its roots in settings where people had to go in to a cultural context very different than their own and have some discipline of how to make sense of what's going on. Turns out it has enormous usefulness in understanding how we make sense of any situation, particularly difficult conversations. So down here at the bottom of the ladder, I'm going to write the word data. Now the word data has a particular meaning in this. It does not mean statistical data. It means directly observable phenomenon. In a conversation, what would the recording device record? That's data. Obviously it's the spoken words, it's the gestures, it's the expressions, it's whatever is observable. That's the data. Based on that data, we make immediate interpretations. You could call this just interpretations. But I want to emphasize the immediacy of them. We make immediate interpretations. So, interpretations, okay? I'm talking with somebody and the person goes, I'm going, is this person paying attention? Or the person grimaces, or they smile. Now, in our culture, if one person smiles, we usually interpret immediately, they like it. We're together. We're thinking similarly. This little gesture, in our culture, it's a gesture of agreement. The data is the heads moving up and down. The interpretation is, the person agrees. In the Japanese culture, this same gesture has no implications of agreement whatsoever. It basically is a gesture of polite respect. I hear you. I hear you. I may disagree entirely, but I still do this. So you got to realize this interpretation stuff is very fast. It happens literally at the speed at which neurons fire, and it's very highly culturally conditioned. Based on those interpretations, we draw conclusions, and we're off to the races. We move into action, we form beliefs. So I'm having a difficult conversation, and one of the persons I have difficulty with, someone maybe there's some interpersonal history, is starting to, do this, fiddling with their device. My immediate interpretation would be what? They're not really paying attention. This person is just difficult. They're never going to be on the program. They've got their own agenda. They don't even want to talk about this. Notice how quickly we race up the ladder and go to our conclusions. This person is really never going to be a very good person to work with. And by the way, this person is not very trustworthy or honest or whatever. This is not hard to explain. Everybody quickly understands the difference between what I experience and what's going on internally. You might say this is the external, the data, the experience data of the situation. This is all the internal stuff. Everybody knows the difference. That's not the problem. The purpose of the ladder of inference is not just to make that distinction. The purpose of the ladder of inference is to recognize that we go from data to immediate interpretations to all kinds of conclusions, and then we treat our conclusions as if they're data. That's the purpose of the ladder of inference. This happens so quickly we don't even notice it. Hey, I just came out of a meeting with my boss, he's really opposed to this idea. Now, did your boss ever say, I'm opposed to this idea? Did they actually say that? No. They raised all these difficult questions, but I now know that he or she is opposed to the idea. So the purpose of the ladder is to make us aware of how quickly we move from what actually happens to our internal process and the conclusions we draw, so that we do not have to be driven by our own conclusions. We could go back and say, gee, can we have a little more time together? I noticed after the last meeting you raised this question and this question, the data, and I was starting to worry if you were really on board, if you think this is a good idea, or you think we're headed in the wrong direction. That's called inquiry. Here's the conclusion I drew, and I go back for more data. I ask the person. Again, the danger of the ladder is the jumping to conclusions and then treating our conclusions as fact. Once you start to develop some discipline in working with this tool, you stop treating your conclusions and interpretations as if they're factual. That opens up a huge territory for different quality conversations.